Welcome, everybody, to This Week in Legal Blogging, in which we talk with leading bloggers from across the legal industry. My name is Bob Ambrogi. I write my own blog called Law Sites. I also have a podcast called Law Next. And this program is presented by LexBlog, providing lawyers with turnkey digital publishing solutions and strategic consulting for 16 years. Just a reminder before we get started that all of the past episodes in this series of our interviews with legal bloggers are available on YouTube at youtube.com/LexBlog. You can also catch us as a podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. So I hope you go back and check out some of our past episodes. Today, we are very honored to have with us David Johnson, who is a managing shareholder with the law firm Winstead. He's based in Fort Worth, and he is a principal author of the blog Texas Fiduciary. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. This is an honor for me to be here with you.
Thanks. It's good to meet you virtually here in this environment. How are you doing generally in these challenging times?
I have a litigation practice, and so I practice in Texas. And as you may know, Texas is a pretty large state.
I've heard
I've got cases. Yeah, I mean, you always hear the statistic that it takes it's less time to get from El Paso to Los Angeles than from El Paso to Texarkana, Texas. And so I've got cases all over the state, from the very north to the very south. And so one of the strange benefits of our current situation is all the courts they don't want us to show up live. So all of our hearings are by Zoom. And so typically I would travel 3 weeks a month, and now I haven't traveled in a long, long time. And so everything's been done by Zoom. And so actually, I think it's probably harm more for my wife than anyone having to see me all the time.
Right. Yeah, it's our families who are suffering in this time. What about depositions? Are you doing remote depositions as well? Or?
We've done some. We've done some, and to be honest, I'm to the extent I can, I'm pushing those off because it's just I don't mind defending one, but to take a deposition by Zoom is just very difficult, I find. And so sometimes you have to, but the cases seem to be, all the scheduling orders are getting pushed off, so there's not much in the way of deadlines. So the depo stuff from my practice has been kind of kicked down the road a little bit.
Yeah. And what's been the situation with your firm? I know you're in Fort Worth, which is a smaller office of your firm, but are you going into the office, or are you mostly still all staying home?
So the firm is technically open. All of our offices are, but they encourage the attorneys strongly to work from home where we can. And so, to be honest, I've been going into the office probably about twice a month. So it's been very little. And the firm's been great support. We got, runners that'll bring stuff from the office to our house and from our house to the office. And so they made it about as easy as possible to work from home. And then with technology nowadays, it's pretty seamless.
Yeah. So, David, obviously you said that you're a litigator, but tell us a little bit more about what your practice is, what your focus is.
So primarily I do trust and estate disputes. And primarily I represent corporate fiduciaries. And so large national banks, I've got some more regional banks, that's trust departments, that states. And so I represent them when it comes to conflict. Sometimes that means a lawsuit. Sometimes it means just trying to find a solution from them to get around a conflict or a dispute, and which may result in having documents drawn up. And so it's been a really interesting practice. I also do some other type of fiduciary litigation, but primarily trust and estate, closely held business.
Yep. And you do some appellate work too. I take it from your bio. It's just yeah.
Yes, I've had kind of a strange career.
Haven't we all?
Yeah, for probably 5 or 6 years, I did probably about 90% appellate and really enjoyed it. And then about 10 or 15 years ago, I kind of focused really more on the trial work. I've always had a practice in fiduciary, but I've really expanded that over the last 10 years, which is my interest area, and so it's worked really well for me. But to answer your question, I really enjoy the research and writing and analytical part of the law. I'd much rather write a summary judgment motion or respond to one than to go take a deposition. So
well, speaking of writing, you've got the blog Texas Fiduciary Litigator. Tell us about the blog, what the focus of the blog is.
So it's primarily, well, it's just all there'll be a number of cases that, tangentially or directly hit on important fiduciary issues. And so I post every week on updates for the case law. And then I have just my own interest kind of articles that I've written on fiduciary issues and post those up on the blog as well. And so that it's, there's not a trust, I would say there's not a trust case that gets decided that's not on my blog. Probably 90% of the estate cases, there are some that aren't important and I don't report on, but 80-90% of those get on the blog. And then also closely held business, maybe even some employment, some other types of fiduciary issues, because I find they all kind of interact at some point. They all kind of intersect, and so I try to keep my pulse on all that case law in this region.
It's interesting that you say that, because as I was reading through your blog, I was thinking, how can there be so much activity on what seems to be a fairly narrow area of law? I'm in Massachusetts, and I can't imagine there would be that much activity in the courts around issues of fiduciary issues that would be reportable on a blog. So it looks like you've got a steady flow of stuff coming through.
That's right. And it is amazing. And that's one reason why I really love my practice, is because you'd think after all the hundreds of years going back to English law with trusts or estates that it'd all be pretty well settled. And it's just not. I mean, it's such a statutory area. And we have the trust code, we have the estates code, we've got model codes, we've got the restatements, and even with all of this, there's still common law that comes into play, and so it's just an ever-changing area, and so I find it intellectually difficult and stimulating.
Yeah. So why did you start the blog in the first place? What got you interested in blogging?
Well, I actually had an earlier blog, and it was more diffuse. It was the Financial Appellate Voice, and so the thought being, if there was a financial institution case that gets decided in Texas, I was going to blog on it back when I was doing more of my appellate practice. And the problem was just too diffuse. I mean, you got all these, lender cases and retail side and all this stuff. And it was too much to do really for one person. And so I decided that I wanted to focus really more narrowly on the fiduciary side, because that's really what I did. And that's when it really took off. So I technically didn't, I just kind of abandoned my first blog, started a whole new one. And I think that was around 2014, 2015. And since then, it's really been so much easier for me, because that's the area I practice in. I want to keep up on that case law anyway. And so it fits perfectly that way. But to answer your question, why did I do it? I've seen lots of great lawyers that don't have client bases. And I've seen lots of mediocre lawyers that have tons of clients. And I never understood that. And so, I guess you could be born into a client relationship. I never had a lot of that. So I had to get out there and hustle. And I do what I'm sure you are familiar with, content marketing, letting people know that I'm an expert in an area of the law. And so this was the way for me to get my name out there and to get people to realize that David Johnson knows what he's talking about when it comes to trust and estate litigation.
Yeah. And was that the motivation when you first started your first, so I think from what I can see, you started this blog in October 2015, at least that was the first post I could find on it. And you were doing the other one before. I mean, had you been already familiar with blogging and following blogs before you started doing your own blog?
Vaguely, yes. I had a kind of a mentor in the firm, a completely different practice area. He did real estate transactional work, and he had a blog, and he was always. I'd worked with him on some disputes and whatnot, where I was the litigator, he was the client relationship lawyer, and he was just always talking about his blog and the kind of reaction. He got quoted in the Wall Street Journal multiple times, and so I just really respected him, and so it was a good mentor type thing to make me start thinking about that as a way to get my name out there, as a way to kind of fill in a space.
Yeah. So when you shifted from doing this kind of more diverse blog to doing the more focused Texas Fiduciary Litigator, what was how did that work out at first? I mean, what was the impact of that in terms of bringing attention to your practice?
Well, it's a slow, for me. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you've been slow, but I mean, you're not going to get an immediate reaction. You have to. It's a long play.
Yeah.
And for me, it is business generating, but it's also just, I enjoy it. It's my hobby. I used to be a bad golfer. I gave that up, and so really, this is my hobby now, and I enjoy it. And so on the weekends, I enjoy getting on and writing up stuff and posting it up there. But it also has the side benefit of helping my professional life as well.
Maybe bloggers all should have handicaps. That might be a thing. I don't know how we calculate that, but I mean, obviously you're an appellate lawyer, so you've got a lot of experience writing, writing appellate briefs, and clearly as a lawyer you have experience as a writer. But did you have experience as a writer other than like as any journalism background or anything like that before you started blogging?
I laugh because my undergrad is in accounting, and you've got accounting professors who don't know how to write. They've got accounting students who don't know how to write. And so I came out from undergrad and went to law school. And law school, they're just they don't really care necessarily about style. They're just, are you getting the concepts? And so I clerked for a judge after my law school career, and the judge was a fantastic writer. And I would turn in my draft opinions or memos, and I would get them back, and they would be half the length, but missing none of the content. And I was just amazed at that. And so then I took it on myself for realizing that I wasn't a good writer. And I mean, I read grammar books for years, and went to seminars and worked on my legal writing, because that is such an important aspect of a lawyer's career. And so, in my opinion, I became a decent writer through just self-education. So it wasn't natural to me at all. It was foreign to me, but that's what got me into writing, and then that got me into the appellate. The appellate aspect, I wanted to get my name out there, so I did a lot of CLE presentations, a lot of writing. I have 20 published law review articles, and so trying to market myself to other lawyers as an appellate lawyer. So I had a lot of content, and I've got law review articles on lots of procedure and on substantive issues. And so it was kind of a natural progression to blogging, because I was used to that. I was doing that anyway. And so I use blogging as a one aspect of my marketing. And so that's on the internet. I get individuals locate me, call me. Talked to someone this morning that found me, out of Houston, and I'm probably going to get a new trust case down there that arises out of that. But really what I wanted it for was to keep in a constant, to my large clients, my bank clients, I wanted to be kind of at their desk. And so they get an alert from me. I've got 150 people who subscribe to my blog. And so they get my alerts when I post on it. And most of those people are my clients. They're people in the banks that can hire me. And so they see that I post like a new case on trust law or estate law. And so it's a way to keep in front of them. And then what I do is every summer I will take all the content from my blog and I put it into a paper, and I call it a litigation update paper, and do a presentation. So I'll go into my clients and do lunch and learns, and provide them lunch, give them an hour of free CLE or CE credit, or CTFA credit, or whatever it is that I can get signed up for. And then on top of that, I do quarterly webinars. And so I don't call them podcasts. I call them webinars. People can sign up, get a free CLE. It could be anybody. It could be lawyers, it could be clients, it could be anybody that looks at my blog. And so doing independent articles on a quarterly basis for that. And so I put all this stuff together, and that's my content and marketing. So the blog is really what makes it go, because I get so much of my content from it to do the updates. But I look at it all in tandem as the way to go. And, I learned, I was told, I think the old way that lawyers market is to be involved in civic groups and to get out in the community. And all that stuff's important, and I do it, but not for business generation, because in my opinion, the legal profession is becoming specialized so much more. And even in smaller markets, people are starting to become more sophisticated legal purchasers, and they want to find someone who doesn't draft wills and also real estate transactions and also litigates this and also does some family law. And I mean, they want someone who's done 100 trust cases. They know the ins and outs of the trust law. They know the warts on the case. They know the good things about your case. And so this is a way for me to become knowledge, to be known as that person in that very discreet niche practice. And so it's worked really, really well for me. And because for two reasons: one, I enjoy it, and two, I think people go on the internet to find lawyers. Clients who have me on their approved lists are getting me on their computers once a week, and so they're going to think of me.
Yeah. Are your clients mostly in the Fort Worth area, or are they throughout the state of Texas?
Most of my clients are not in Fort Worth. Most of my clients, I've got a lot of clients in Dallas. I've got clients in San Antonio, Houston. I do have clients in Fort Worth, obviously. But I've got in-house counsel in Chicago and New York that cover Texas for a bank, right? And so they know that, if they've got a trust dispute in Texas, I'm going to call David up, even though they're in Chicago. I've never met him in person. I met him on video like this. But so it doesn't really matter where they are so much, I find.
Yeah. So I'm curious. I mean, you do all these different kinds of writing. You do appellate writing. You do litigation brief writing. You do law review writing. You do brief blog writing. How is your blog writing different or the same than all the other writing you're doing? Are you tailoring it in a different way, writing in a different style?
That's a great question. And I probably should be doing that more, to be honest. Different people blog very differently. And my blog posts are probably more legalistic, right? More of a legal style. Probably could be more conversational. But I guess that's just the way I write. But I will provide, I would say about probably half of my blog posts are not just here's a case that came out and here's the holding and why they held this way, but I go into, and I call it an interesting note, and it's kind of my take on why the case is correct, why the case is wrong, or other aspects of the case that may implicate other areas of law. And so that is, I guess, more conversational in style than just my straight up here's a blog post. And then on my article type stuff, not just the case updates, but here's punitive damages in Texas or whatever it is. That's going to be kind of more like a law review article type style, because once again, that's just kind of the way I write. So I find people, it may not be conversational, but people have commented that, that they really enjoy the content, even though it's a little more formal.
Yeah, and I certainly did not mean to suggest there's a right or a wrong way to do it, because there is no right way to do it. It's more what works for you and what's working for your audience. And it sounds like it's working for you just as you're doing it. So I don't think you have to worry about trying to change it up in any way. So how has it worked for you from a marketing perspective? Have you seen results either directly from the blog, or do you feel that it's in some other way had an impact on your practice?
It's had a huge impact, and not at first. And you had to be patient. Right. It wasn't like I started in 2015 and all of a sudden I started getting a bunch of cases. you start, you get some of your clients that you hope are your friends that help support you and forwarded your information around to other people at your client bank or whatever it is. And it grows organically. And so, start with one follower, and now I've got 150 followers. I've got about 90 Twitter followers. And so we were talking before, I have on my blog and I have a post, it gets linked up to LinkedIn, it goes to Twitter. Our firm has a Twitter account, sometimes it gets on that stuff. And so it's all kind of multimedia and my webinars that I do. And so I would say, it's hard to say necessarily it's all attributable to my blog, but my client base has grown fourfold in the last 5 or 6 years, and maybe it's just my age and coming into my own, in my career. I'm sure there's a lot to do with it, but I have to give a lot of credit to the blog as well. And like I said, it's kind of funny because some of my friends have benefited from my blog because I'll get smaller matters in, people that need help, and it's not really efficient for me to handle for them. I'm able to refer it to friends. And then for the larger matters that I can help with, then I do. And so, I had a client find me in South Texas, and they had over 100,000 acres of ranch property in 6 different trusts, fighting with their siblings. One sibling wanted to control it all and not sell it. It's been in our family for 80 years. And my client is 74 years old and says, I've had this trust worth $25 million that I've never gotten a single distribution from my entire life. And so, we were able to hopefully, knock on wood, get a settlement drafted, get all that land partitioned. She's going to be able to sell her property and move on with her life and be able to enjoy, stuff that her parents and grandparents wanted her to enjoy. And so, that client wouldn't have found me had I not had my blog, I don't think. They wouldn't have found my fiduciary writing, my trust writing. I probably reported on some case about partition, and she found that and said, hey, here's someone that knows, something about what I'm going through. And so,
Has blogging helped you help raise your visibility among other lawyers in Texas? Are you kind of the go-to guy in your area? Do lawyers tend to think of you more because of your blogging to refer cases?
Well, it's I like to think that people are knowledgeable of me. I do a lot of speaking for state bar events. I've had people cite to my blog. I've used my blog for their update case, papers and presentations. And so I've had very nice people, comment to me and say that, my blog has been really a resource for them. Just had a brand new lawyer join our firm. I just talked with him yesterday afternoon, and he has a blog, and he does completely different area law. He does real estate litigation. And so we were talking about it. He said that he'd followed my blog before he ever joined my law firm and knew of me. And so, that's really nice. I had a funny story. I had an associate in our Houston office, and she actually had her family had a case, went to the Supreme Court. I blogged on it. She wasn't involved in that case. She found my blog post, and then she hired me. We were in the same law firm, and she didn't know me and didn't know my practice area. Found out someone blogged on this case that she had an interest in, and then hired me that way. So it's crazy the way that things kind of come back at you. But to answer your question, I like to think other lawyers think of me as a resource, and I've got a lot of lawyers that tell me they follow my blog, and judges too, and that's very humbling.
Yeah. Well, speaking of your firm, how is your firm? What is your firm's attitude toward blogging? Is your firm supportive of blogging? Are there other blogs at your firm as well? Well, you mentioned that there are other bloggers at your firm as well, but does your firm support you in your blogging?
It does. Financially, it supports it. It pays for the blog and whatnot. And then, and I'm sure everybody has their own opinions on stuff. You got more old school people and new school people, and but the firm does definitely support it from a resource perspective, and then gives me a attaboy and a pat in the back when I get awards or whatever for it. So So the firm's been great. And it's interesting because I do have other people in the firm that blog. I've had a lot of blogs that just kind of, they get started and get really excited and then just kind of go away because they lose interest. They don't stay with it.
Yeah.
And, I tell people you're going to have to do it 3-4 years before you really see much of an impact to your practice. I mean, and people have to have patience. I've got one partner and we blog very differently. He views it like, he tries to be very conversational and he's not very legalistic, and he posts probably about once every 6 weeks. And so I do case reports. Mine's more legal, more like law review, more appellate, and I post every week. And so I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do it. It's just kind of your personality and kind of maybe what your goals are. I know he feels like he gets a lot out of his blog. People find him for it. And so I don't think there's any one right or one wrong way to do it. I would say do it the way that you enjoy it.
Yeah. Did you kind of fall into a schedule or a routine naturally, or did you just kind of set that for yourself? Do you have a particular day of the week that you blog on or publish on, or how do you do that?
It changes. Yeah. I try to do it about a week apart, and so it just depends on when the last time I did it. And so sometimes it varies. Right now, for several reasons, I'm tending to post more on Thursday, Friday. Sometimes it shifts around. Sometimes I normally do my work on the weekends. Maybe if I got an hour and a half on a Tuesday and I'm not doing anything, I'll go do some. But then I keep a document in Word and just kind of add all this stuff. So I've got kind of a resource I can go to. It's ready to go, and then I just go post it up. And so I get nervous when I don't have anything kind of ready to go. And so I usually have at least 4 or 5 cases ready to be posted at any time. Because I am at the whim of the courts, and I don't necessarily know when the courts are going to post their opinions. And sometimes I'll get 5 opinions in 1 week, and sometimes I'll go a month without an opinion.
Right.
And so you kind of have to pace it out a little bit.
Yeah. So when you go a month without an opinion, you're using the things you've saved or collected or scrapbooked or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you're not the only person contributing to your blog, right? There are other authors on your blog?
I'm the only author.
You're the only author. I thought I saw another name on there.
Well, originally I had a lawyer that was a great friend of mine and still is, and he left the law firm about 2 years ago. And so originally he was a co-blogger with me, but to be honest, he probably only posted about 2 articles. He didn't maybe have the same interest level I did in it. And so there are about 2 articles that he wrote that are in the blog, but otherwise everything it's all me.
Everything is you. Oh, you know what? I think what I was looking at was some of the things seem to get posted to your blog, but under the firm name as the byline rather than as on your name. So I don't know if those are like news items or something or.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's kind of funny because as a blogger, you think I'd be really great at technology, and I'm really not. And so luckily the firm has good tech people, marketing people. And so there's a wonderful woman I get to work with. And so occasionally I'll say, hey, would you mind posting this paper up on my blog or posting this? So you'll see the firm marketing people posting stuff up for me. And so I probably could learn it pretty easily, but at this point I post up material that I write, but I don't know how to upload a PDF to my blog. So when I want someone to upload a PDF, I have to go to Rachel Guy, and she does it for me.
Perfect. Or you can call the Lex blog people; they'll help you with that.
Exactly.
So, David, we're just about at the end of our time here, but I wonder, do you have any advice you'd like to share with other legal professionals who are, either just starting out in blogging or considering starting a blog on any secrets or advice that you've learned over the years of doing this?
I would say the first thing is to have patience. It's not an instant gratification type thing. Secondly, it's to think ahead and to have a lot of material ready so that when you have dry spells, you've got something to post up there. And third, I would say is try to really focus in and be as specific as you can on the area of law that you want to practice in. And to give a funny anecdote, there was a fiduciary case that was a homeowners association case, a board member of a homeowner association. I don't do any homeowners association law at all. And so I had that one case posted up on my blog, and I probably get 4 calls a year from people who are mad at their homeowners associations wanting to retain me. And I always have to say, no, I don't do that. So you have to be careful. If you post stuff up on your blog, be ready for people to call you or email you about it. And so, so that's why, I try to be as focused as I can. And that to me has been the key to whatever success I've had with this one.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I once posted I write a blog about legal technology, which has nothing to do even with the practice of law, really. But I once wrote a post about food allergy law because I have a child who has food allergy, and I was kind of just wrote a post about various resources available for those who have legal issues around food allergies. That was probably, I don't know, more than 5 years ago I wrote that post, and I still get emails from people all the time wanting to hire me as a food allergy lawyer. I don't do food allergy law, but it is funny. Well, I really appreciate your taking the time to be with us today. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you, and congratulations on all the success you've had with your blog and otherwise.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, Bob. It's been a lot of fun.
Great. We've been speaking here today with David Johnson, the author of the blog Texas Fiduciary Litigator. Fort Worth office, or these days based out of his home office, I guess. And we will be back next week with another episode of This Week in Legal Blogging. As I said at the beginning, a reminder that you can find all of these episodes on YouTube at youtube.com/LexBlog. So look for them there. And on behalf of everybody at LexBlog, thanks for watching and listening. This is Bob Ambrogi. See you next time.